I surprised my wife with a party. I told Emily that my seminar ended a day early, but I couldn't change my flight. That meant I would be back on Tuesday night. She was supposed to pick me up at the airport around 6 at 10 p.m. She said I'd have to be away for another night, but she'd be happy to see me. I thought about it for about an hour and realized I'd been away a lot and should think more about my wife, with whom I'd lived for 17 years. I went to the airport and tried to sort something out. I was about ready to give up when I realized there was a flight to an airport near my hometown. The airport I usually use and prefer is about an hour north of where I live. The other airport was almost 2 hours south and I'd never used it. I checked and found that there was a flight leaving for that airport in half an hour, so I went to the counter to see if I could buy a ticket. I was amazed at how easy it was. An hour later, I was in the air for 3 hours and was back on the ground by midnight. Emily was really happy about my early return, but I decided not to call her to make it a complete surprise. It was just under midnight when I pulled into my driveway. The house was dark and Emily's car was gone. I thought that was strange, so I carried my bag into the house and unpacked. Where could she be at this hour? I decided not to be surprised. I called her cell phone. She picked up on the third ring. "Hello," she mumbled. She sounded sleepy. I thought I'd call and see how you were doing. I'm fine, but it's well past midnight. Ron and I was asleep," she replied. "I'll be at the airport tomorrow at 6, she said. "I'll be at the airport tomorrow at 6 to pick you up." I was a bit puzzled and curious to know that she'd been asleep, but not at home. "Where are you?" I tried calling our home phone, but I only got through to the answering machine. I told her, "Where do you think I am?" "Silly, I'm in bed. Our phone doesn't work. I have a repairman coming. I'll find out what the problem is tomorrow." "Several people have told me the same thing," she yawned. "Just call my cell phone if you want to get in touch with me." My head was spinning. Was she in bed upstairs? I was unpacking my suitcase there and didn't see her. It seemed unlikely she was lying to me. But why? "Well, I won't be on the 6. I'm on the 000 flight, so you don't have to follow me. It looks like we'll have to stay a few more days. I'll call you when I know exactly what time and day I'll be back." "Oh, honey, I'm going to miss you so much. Come home as soon as you can," she purred. "I can't wait to see you. I'll be in touch, darling. I'm sorry. Good night, sweet dreams. I'll be thinking of you." She hung up and I heard her giggle. I called my home number and it rang normally. I thought about answering it and having a great conversation with myself, but I didn't have the heart to do it. I went up to our room and searched under the bed and anywhere else the man might be hiding. "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building. I'm in sales, not rocket science, but my nose was working well. I smelled something rotten. How dumb was I? Pretty dumb." That was my honest answer to myself the next morning. I got up early and moved the rental car to the other side of the street. Around 7 in the morning, I saw Emily's car pull up to the house. There was a man driving with her. I hid in the junk closet that is in the foyer. I kept the door ajar. Emily unlocked the door and they came in. "I just want to change. I'll get clothes for tomorrow so we don't have to come back here tomorrow morning. I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'd help you, but then I'd have to put you to bed again." He laughed. "Then I'd have to fire you for being late." "I don't think you'd fire me," Emily replied from "I think you like it too much that I work under you. Even your wife thinks I'm the perfect secretary. What would you say to her?" This was Emily's new boss. He was the one she thought was obnoxious and arrogant. I wondered what else she'd do if she liked the guy. He'd only been with the company for a couple of weeks. "In a couple of weeks, if I remember correctly, you'll be working at the same pace as her mother." Her boss laughed and said, "I'll have to fire you anyway." Then he added, "I told her I'll be looking for a house this week. Now it looks like I won't be away from the hotel for a couple." A few days later, Emily came back into the room and laughed. She looked gorgeous, and her boss was called Joe. He grabbed her and gave her a slow, wet kiss. I was tempted to grab an umbrella off the shelf and shove it up his ass. "Why don't you spend tomorrow night with me right here? We can go out to dinner and be there by 8. 10 morning. When we get back, you might get the chance to see the cabin after you've spoken to the owner." Emily suggested that if you're interested, I could show you around. Would you like that kind of tour? What if your husband comes home early? He'll give me a day's notice when he's coming home. If he doesn't call today, he won't be home tomorrow. That's good enough. Jeff said he doesn't want some jealous husband trying to kill him. "Ron's a seal," Emily replied. "He'd probably offer you a beer." and apologize for bringing me into your arms. He sounds like a wuss to me. Jeff suggested my wife would rip my balls off. If Ron cheated on me, I'd have his balls. Fear keeps you men in line. Emily added that, most of the time, you don't seem afraid of your wives. Believe me, I'd be in deep trouble. Jeff replied that he'd be lucky to save his life, let alone his balls. Luckily, she's in Houston, so I feel pretty safe. That was all I heard as they walked out the door. I was really angry and my blood pressure must have been through the roof. Not only was she unfaithful, but my wife despised me. I sat down and thought about what I could do. I remembered that Emily had told me that her new boss was being transferred from the company headquarters in Houston. I needed to find out what his name was, so I made a few calls. I made a few phone calls and asked a few simple questions to the female receptionist at Emily's work, and quickly got all the information I needed. His name was Jeffrey Ross, and he had a wife and 2 teenage children. She would stay in Texas until the kids finished their school year, and then they would join Jeffrey here in Springfield. He would look for the house. Every night after work, I looked up the last name Ross in Houston on the internet switchboard and found 3 Jeff Rosses in Houston with the first call. I got the right one. Mrs. Ross, Mrs. Jeffrey Ross, I said. Does your husband work for the Halifax company? I asked. Yes, she replied. This is Don Watson from Halifax, I lied. We're planning a small party for your husband Jeff and you. We'll provide you with round-trip tickets to Springfield and back. It'll be a complete surprise for Jeff. Will you be able to make it? I couldn't help but think about what an idiot I was, but all's fair in love and war. I've been to war. I can ask my sister to watch the kids. Kids, she replied. That sounds really nice. When is this affair planned? I almost answered her question directly, but I held my tongue. Tomorrow night you'll need to catch American Airlines flight 1435. Just charge your card and the company will reimburse Jeff with a check. I'll let you know at 0. Morning. The party will be at 8. I'll be in touch. Just remember to keep this a secret. She promised not to say anything to anyone, and I ended the conversation. I then started calling Emily's friends and family to invite them to Emily's surprise party. I told them that she had gotten a promotion from her boss, and I thought it was cause for celebration. Everyone seemed satisfied with this explanation, and the need to keep it from Emily. I asked them to be at our house by 7 to be sure Emily would be there. I also called a local restaurant to order food and drinks for the next evening. I told them to set everything up on the veranda next to the living room by our pool. Emily has always wanted to throw a nice party on that veranda, so I thought this would please her. I left them directions and told them that the house might be empty when they arrived, but they could bring everything to the outdoor veranda by going around the house the next day. I got to the airport an hour early, as passengers were starting to enter the baggage area. I asked a couple of women without a date if they were Mrs. Ross. As I was asking one of the women, I heard a voice addressing me. Hello, I'm Mrs. Ross, she said. Are you here to pick me up? I was almost speechless when I saw her. She had the looks of a movie star. I had to try twice before I could answer. My wife was an attractive woman, but this woman was the gold standard. I said, My name is Ron, and I'm here to pick you up. My wife works for your husband. Did he ever mention Emily? Yes, he did, but I thought her husband would be a little older. She replied, Damn that. Actually told his wife that Emily was old and fat. I had to think fast. She seemed a little suspicious. I'm often told that I married an older and bigger woman. I tell everyone that she just has more experience and is more to love. I offered my version. She seemed to think about it for a moment, then smiled. I dodged that bullet. We packed her bags and headed to the parking lot. It was 6. When we arrived at my house at 30, I was telling Mrs. Ross that it was an outdoor party in honor of her husband and also in honor of my wife's birthday. As the guests started to arrive, the caterer was finishing setting everything up, and I was impressed. It looked like a first-class party. I didn't realize it could be done so easily by 7. By 30, everyone I invited was in place. I asked them to park behind the church a half block away, so our driveway would be clear. I told everyone I'd hide in the living room and that when the guests of honor pulled up, I'd turn off the patio light. That'd be our signal to be very quiet. We have sliding glass doors leading to the Vera and vertical blinds. The blinds were operated by a cord about 4 in long, which could be pulled to open them. There was also a cord to draw the blinds apart. In cold weather, we pulled heavier curtains over the doors. They were big enough for me to hide behind to reach the cords of the vertical blinds and the light switch on the Vera. A few minutes before 8, I saw Emily's car pull up to the house. I saw that the lights were on in the veranda, so I hid behind the curtains. Everything became very quiet. The door opened, and Emily and Jeff came in. They were laughing, so I knew they were having a good time. "I can't wait to get you into your bunk." Jeff laughed. "I thought we'd never get here." He pulled Emily's dress down over her head, exposing her breasts. She was wearing only a thong and nothing else. Jeff pulled them off her. "Your ass is so round. You're always horny," Emily said. Jeff pushed her over to my chair and unzipped her. That was the moment I decided to carefully open the blinds to the veranda. It was dark, and the lights were on in the room, so no one in the house could see anything outside. Emily and Jeff weren't looking anywhere but at the veranda, and those there were undoubtedly watching Jeff ramming. By this time, Emily was going at it hard and fast. I'd moved to a chair off to the side and was quietly watching. "I'm done," Jeff moaned when she was done. She noticed me sitting there watching them, and she almost choked. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "I'm a little disappointed at such a trivial question," I replied. Perhaps the surprise had numbed her brain. "This is my house," Emily said. "My name is on the door." I replied, "I didn't think you'd be home for a few more days." She exclaimed, "It's quite obvious." I replied nonchalantly, "I have to go now." Jeff muttered, "I have things to do." I asked, "Can I get you a beer or something?" Both Jeff and Emily were taken aback by my offer. I could see Jeff thinking that Emily was right and assuming that I would offer him a beer if I caught them together. I smiled to myself as I watched Jeff's train of thought. Before he could answer, his wife burst into the room from the veranda. She was holding a large purse and waving it as hard as she could. Jeff was so surprised to see her that he didn't even move to defend himself. I think he landed about 5 feet from where he was standing. Emily's mother and sister came into the room next. Emily was still, "Get dressed, Emily. You're a fool," her mother snapped, picking up Emily's dress and holding it out to her. "Wipe that filth off your face, little sister." Joan, Emily's sister, added, "That was quite a show you put on for all of us. You should think about doing a movie." Emily was too stunned to speak. I turned on the porch light and she saw 20 other people looking at her. I went out. I started filling my plate with potato salad and wings. Then I got a can of beer out of the refrigerator and went back inside. I sat down to eat and watched Jeff try to sit on his ass and Emily try to regain her lost speech. I had to admit that the whole thing was frustrating as hell as I chewed my wing. It occurred to me that I wasn't the one who had created this mess. Emily and Jeff, they'd put themselves and those who loved them in this difficult position. In the end, it was better for everyone to know the truth. It was good to find out what the was and move on with their lives. Eventually, things settled down. Emily's cousin drove Mrs. Ross to a motel. Another cousin helped Jeff to his car and gave him a ride to the motel. Emily's mother asked her if she wanted to go with her, but Emily refused. She asked Emily to go with her, but Emily refused. "I know you must be upset," her mom told me. "I think Emily deserves a beating, but I think she's suffering enough as it is." Then they left Emily hiding in the bathroom, and I heard the shower running. I've never enjoyed a beer and wings so much, sitting alone and going over the events of the evening in my mind. Once or twice in my life, the planets align. Everything went perfectly, and the plan actually worked. After eating all my salad and wings I could eat, I started cleaning up. It took quite a bit of time, as I had to wrap the groceries and put them in the fridge and freezer. It was past midnight when I sat down at the table with the last beer of the evening and relaxed. Emily came into the room and sat across from me. "I hope you're happy you did everything you could to ruin my life tonight." She complained, "Even my own family thinks I'm some kind of worthless wife." "Is that what you wanted, Emily?" "Why would they think that? Did I do anything to give them that impression? Maybe it was you. The only reason I can think of to form that opinion is when you got caught with our boss leaning over our furniture. If you thought we had a problem, you could have come to me instead of inviting the whole neighborhood over." "Do we have a problem?" I asked, grinning. "Are you telling me that if we had a problem, you would have discussed it with me before you slept with someone else? I never meant to hurt you, Ron. I never thought you'd even know about it," Emily reasoned. "You're hurting me on purpose. So inviting people over to my house for a little surprise party for my lovely wife is worse than sleeping with someone outside of marriage?" I asked. "I don't think many people would agree with that." Then she said what I had been waiting to hear for so long. "If you had been around more, this would never have happened." Emily reasoned, "You didn't pay enough attention to me and I fell for Jeff's ploy. I was so alone and vulnerable." I laughed heartily. She was such a stupid fool. She was actually trying to blame me and make me apologize for leading her into the arms of another man. I felt a deep satisfaction as I closed the bedroom door behind me and locked it. My shackles had been removed. I was emotionally free and soon to be legally free. I looked forward to my new life. The end.